Hi, this is Mr. Kufs, and I'm here. I'm doing something I've never done before, which is make my first video just walking around the room with my selfie camera on my phone. And I wish I had a longer arm because I feel like I look kind of stocky. Is that okay? What if I stand like this? I want to talk to you about the amendments, and I'm hoping that you could get out a sheet of paper, or you could get a list online or something with the 10 amendments. What ends up happening is in 1787, when they created the Constitution in Philadelphia, the founding fathers there, mostly Madison and Hamilton and Jay, and led by Washington and also Franklin, recognized that there was an issue, and the issue was they had to get this new Constitution ratified by all 13 states. And there were these people that were Anti-Federalists that didn't believe in the strong federal government. And essentially what ends up happening is those people need to be appeased, if you will. They feared too strong of a central government. So what happens is that we create a mechanism, if you will, of amendments. Or like the video that we had shown from the movie with Joe Pesci with Honors, when he says the genius of the Constitution was that the founding fathers had their flaws, but they were smart enough to recognize that times would change and that they weren't perfect. So they actually realized that they had to create provisions specifically in writing, amendments where they could list all the things that the government can't do. The people that feared government would be pacified by this. So they came up with 10 of them, and we call that the Bill of Rights. Write that down, the Bill of Rights. So there's 10 amendments, and they encompass the Bill of Rights. Now, if you look in your notes, I gave you the 10 amendments. You can go through them. You don't need to know, for sake of this course, all 10 of the amendments, and I'm looking down right now. I probably should have done a better job of preparing this. You don't need to know all 10 amendments, but what you need to know is just really, I don't have it in front of me right now, but we need to start writing down each amendment and the ones that you do need to know. So it's pretty awkward already. So the first amendment is amendment, because they use Roman numerals, Amendment 1, if you want to write that down. And that is basically the most important, Amendment 1. It's going to be backwards, so that's not going to work. Amendment 1 is arguably the most important one. It kind of sets up the others, and it is the basic freedoms. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to express yourself, freedom to peacefully assemble, and freedom of religion. I always use the acronym SPEAR. Do you know what an acronym is? That's where letters make a word. Speech, press, expression, assembly, religion. That's the acronym SPEAR, and that's the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment. Freedom of speech means that you can say what you want, but we know that from later Supreme Court cases that is a little bit limited. Freedom of the press, we know from the Zenger trial, John Peter Zenger, that you can speak out against public figures in print. Freedom of expression is to express yourself in a way that isn't inappropriate, to peacefully assemble, and then to practice any religion or lack thereof. The Second Amendment, and if you want to join me, you can get a marker and write the number 2 on your right arm. It's the right to bear arms. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. What does that mean? Well, if you want to read it in print, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We're talking about guns. We're talking about the right to protect yourself, again, from an oppressive government. You need to remember the intent. You don't need to know the Third Amendment. The Third Amendment is basically about quartering troops without the consent of the owner. The Fourth Amendment is the right against illegal searches and seizures, and that deals with having a warrant and not letting just the government or law enforcement walk into your house without just cause, or probable cause is the words they use. The Fifth Amendment is really three parts. One is that you don't have to self-incriminate. In other words, you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to testify, witness against yourself. There's a couple other parts that deal with eminent domain and deal really with, we get into double jeopardy. The Sixth Amendment, you have the right to a speedy and public trial. That's an important one. The Seventh Amendment, you have the right to a trial by a jury of your peers. So the trial wouldn't be people, it would be people that represent your community. The Eighth Amendment is no excessive bail and against cruel and unusual punishment. So unlike Europe, we're not going to draw and quarter you. Because that would be deemed to be cruel and unusual. The Ninth Amendment basically is, hey, if we didn't put it in here, but it's something oppressive by the government, that's wrong too. And then the last amendment is called the States' Rights Amendment. The 10th Amendment says all powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and local government. And it's basically saying that the federal government can't do anything that oversteps the powers that are specifically in the Constitution. Those 10 amendments really helped get this ratified by some of the states that were more anti-stronger federal government. People like Thomas Jefferson would be much happier with the Bill of Rights than they were about the Constitution as a whole. So that wraps it up. And eventually, in the 1789 range, you start to see one by one all 13 states adopt this Constitution to be the law of the land. But if it weren't for those 10 Bill of Rights, first 10 amendments, it would have never happened. Thank you.